Honda has just revealed its 2026 lineup. If you have spent years riding Harley, this is not something you casually scroll past. This is not a refresh, not a paint update, not a technology shuffle. Honda has made deliberate choices about weight, about heat, about long-term comfort, and most importantly, about price. These are not bikes chasing trends. They are machines aimed squarely at riders who already know what they like and who are quietly getting tired of excess. For years, Harley has depended on loyalty, on history, on emotional connection. Honda is approaching from a different angle. They are asking a simple question: what does riding feel like after decades in the saddle? And then they are building motorcycles around that answer. Several of these machines land directly in Harley territory, not by copying style, but by offering alternatives that feel easier to live with. Lighter bikes, cooler engines, lower prices, and fewer compromises. This lineup is not loud, but it is intentional. And the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. The first sign of this shift appears in an unexpected place: a motorcycle that does not try to impress. The Honda Shadow Phantom. This machine does not chase performance numbers. It does not advertise innovation. And it does not pretend to be something new. Instead, it leans into familiarity. A low, relaxed stance, a measured throttle, and the kind of riding feel that fades into the background in the best possible way. For riders who remember when motorcycles were simpler, when riding was about rhythm rather than menus, this kind of machine feels grounding. The Shadow Phantom offers something many riders quietly miss: predictability. No excessive heat, no overwhelming weight, no pressure to ride a certain way. It simply does what a cruiser is meant to do: carry a rider comfortably through everyday miles without asking for constant attention. That matters more with time. As riders gain experience, the appeal of drama fades, and the value of consistency grows. This is where the Shadow Phantom becomes relevant, not as a competitor to heavyweight cruisers, but as an alternative to them. A motorcycle that delivers the cruiser experience without the physical tax, without the price escalation, and without unnecessary complexity. It reminds riders that satisfaction does not require excess, and that reminder lands directly in territory Harley once dominated without competition. As the lineup unfolds, the focus begins to shift, away from cruising and toward travel. The Honda Transalp 750 enters the picture, not as a challenge, but as an invitation. This machine carries a philosophy that resonates deeply with experienced riders, especially those who have spent years on large touring bikes. It is not built to intimidate, it is built to cooperate. Manageable size, balanced weight, and an upright riding position that allows the rider to relax rather than brace. Many riders reach a point where sheer size stops being impressive and starts becoming tiring. Parking lots, slow traffic, tight fuel stops. These moments matter, and the Transalp addresses them directly. It offers enough power for highway travel without demanding physical effort. It stays composed on rough pavement without transmitting every imperfection, and it keeps heat under control, something riders notice immediately. This is not about replacing touring motorcycles. It is about redefining comfort. Comfort as control. Comfort as calm. Comfort as the ability to keep riding without feeling worn down. The Transalp fits into a growing realization that distance does not require bulk. And once riders experience that, the shift becomes hard to ignore. As the conversation moves forward, Honda introduces something far less dramatic and far more dangerous to competitors: the NC750X. This motorcycle does not arrive with bold claims. It does not lean on nostalgia. and it does not try to feel exciting. Instead, it focuses on what riding actually looks like, day after day, year after year. Low stress, balance, predictable handling, and an engine that delivers usable power without excess heat or noise. This is the kind of motorcycle experienced riders begin to appreciate quietly. The ones who have already owned fast bikes, heavy bikes, and complicated bikes. The NC750X does not fight the rider. It works with them. Slow speed maneuvering feels controlled. Parking lot turns feel natural, and the riding position reduces strain before it has time to build. Over time, that matters more than styling. Maintenance stays simple, fuel use stays reasonable, and the machine feels consistent. No surprises, no learning curve. This type of motorcycle does not steal buyers overnight. It steals them gradually. One practical decision at a time, and those decisions add up, especially for riders who no longer want riding to feel like work. Then comes a machine that carries long-term consequences. The Rebel 500. This is not just an entry-level cruiser. It is a foundation. The Rebel 500 feels approachable without feeling temporary. It welcomes new riders without treating them like beginners, and it gives experienced riders a reason to stay interested. Lightweight construction, low seat height, and predictable responses create confidence early. Confidence leads to enjoyment, and enjoyment leads to loyalty. This is how brands grow quietly, by being present at the beginning. Many riders form their strongest attachments to their first motorcycle. For decades, that starting point often belonged to American cruisers. Honda is reclaiming that space with machines that feel friendly, reliable, and easy to live with. The Rebel 500 also appeals to riders moving in the opposite direction, those stepping down from larger motorcycles who still want a cruiser stance without the strain. It proves something important. A motorcycle does not need to be large to feel satisfying, and when riders internalize that lesson, their buying habits change permanently. By this point, a pattern becomes visible. Honda is not attacking Harley directly. They are offering alternatives at every stage of the riding journey. Simple cruising, practical daily riding, lightweight confidence building. Each machine speaks to a different moment in a rider's life. Together, they form a path. This is how market share changes hands, not through headlines, but through alignment. Alignment with aging bodies, with shifting priorities, and with the reality of long-term ownership. None of these motorcycles ask riders to abandon what they love about riding. They simply remove friction. Less heat, less weight, less fatigue, and less financial pressure. And once friction is removed, comparison becomes unavoidable. This is the warning sign, not one model, but a lineup that understands riders as they are, not as they were. At this point in the lineup, Honda shifts the tone again, moving away from accessibility and practicality, and towards something more deeply rooted in long-distance riding culture. This is where the Africa Twin 1100 enters the conversation, and its presence carries a very different kind of weight. For riders who have spent years covering serious miles, the Africa Twin is not a new name. It represents a lineage built on reliability, balance, and the ability to keep moving when conditions stop being ideal. That reputation matters, especially to experienced riders who value proven engineering over novelty. The Africa Twin 1100 does not try to impress with excess. Instead, it delivers calm stability, predictable throttle response, and a riding position designed to support the body over long days rather than punish it. What stands out most is how this machine reframes comfort. Traditional heavyweight touring bikes offer luxury, but they also bring heat, mass, and fatigue that slowly wear riders down. The Africa Twin takes a different approach. It stays cooler, feels lighter on its feet, and remains manageable even when fully loaded. For riders who have felt their tolerance for bulk change over time, this becomes more than a preference. It becomes a solution. The result is a motorcycle that encourages distance without demanding sacrifice. It does not replace the idea of touring. It redefines it, quietly pulling riders away from platforms that feel increasingly cumbersome. From endurance, Honda pivots toward a machine that directly challenges one of Harley's most reliable strongholds, the modern cruiser. The Rebel 1100 represents a very deliberate move, offering real torque and presence without the physical cost that often accompanies larger cruisers. This motorcycle feels confident without being heavy, responsive without being aggressive. For riders who have spent years muscling heavyweight cruisers through parking lots, traffic, and tight turns, the difference is immediately noticeable. The Rebel 1100 delivers the sensation riders want: strong pull, steady cruising, relaxed posture, without requiring the constant effort that larger machines demand. Comfort plays a central role here. The riding position remains neutral, the controls fall naturally into place, and the bike responds smoothly to throttle input. These details matter more than raw numbers, especially for riders who measure satisfaction by how long they can stay in the saddle, rather than how dramatic the ride feels. This is where Honda becomes particularly dangerous. They are not asking riders to abandon cruising. They are offering a version of it that feels easier to live with. And once riders experience that balance, returning to heavier, hotter alternatives becomes harder to justify. At the top of the lineup sits the Goldwing, and its role in this conversation is impossible to ignore. This motorcycle does not compete on image. It competes on execution. Decade after decade, the Goldwing has defined what long-distance comfort actually means. Not in theory, but in practice. What separates the Goldwing is not a single feature, but the way everything works together. The engine remains smooth and composed over endless miles. The wind protection reduces fatigue instead of creating turbulence. The ergonomics support the rider's posture rather than forcing constant adjustment. These are not marketing claims. They are engineering decisions refined over time. For riders who have crossed states and countries, these qualities matter more than branding. The Goldwing demonstrates what happens when comfort is treated as a requirement rather than an accessory. When riders compare that experience to similarly priced alternatives, the contrast becomes uncomfortable for competitors. This is where Harley faces its most difficult comparison. Not because the Goldwing looks more exciting, but because it removes obstacles that riders have grown tired of tolerating. Taken individually, none of these motorcycles represents an immediate threat. Together, they tell a different story. Honda is not chasing Harley's past. They are aligning with riders' present reality. Less weight, less heat, more comfort, lower cost of ownership, and machines that respect how riders change over time. This is how territory shifts. Not through confrontation, but through relevance. Honda's 2026 lineup does not ask riders to change who they are. It simply meets them where they already are. And that is the warning Harley cannot afford to ignore.